already discussed about a realm, right? So realm basically is a different department or different set with its own user base. Okay, and whatever the policies that we enforce in that realm is going to be applied to its own user base, and the users from that realm basically would be stored in their own separate identity store. In short, what I can say is one realm is associated with one directory server. So when we say directory server, it's not something, I mean, it could be an external one as well, or it could be an embedded one. So let me just explain this, what I mean. Let me put it in this. So real, each realm will have its own directory service or server, or what you can say identity store. So Manoj, can you just give an example? What are the different identity stores that we are familiar with, or which are famous in the market?
It is LDAP, right?
Sorry,
LDAP.
LDAP. Do you want to say AD? LDAP
Yeah.
and AD are different. Okay, let's talk about these two. AD, LDAP. So AD is what? Active Directory. LDAP is what? Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Correct. Now, how do you differentiate what is an AD and what is a LDAP? So, in our example, we have Apache, right? Apache Tomcat. So
Yeah.
this is an app server. And what is HTTP?
Hypertext transfer.
Hypertext transfer protocol. So basically, using HTTP, Apache would communicate its services, right? So what we want to say is Apache uses HTTP. So it's just that Apache uses HTTP. We have JBoss, Blastfish, WebLogic. These are all app servers, right? So even they use HTTP. HTTP is independent of Apache. Correct? You got my point?
Yeah.
HTTP is basically a protocol through which Apache would communicate or render its services. And this HTTP protocol is also used by JBoss or other app services, app servers. Similarly, LDAP is a protocol, and LDAP is used by many directory services. So AD is one of them, which is from Microsoft, right? Similarly, you have um, Oracle directory. This is from Oracle. We have one from ForgeRock that's called OpenDJ or OpenDS. Now it is referred to as OpenDS, Open Directory Service. So these are all directory services And these directory services, basically what they use, it's similar to AD. AD is just a product from Microsoft. They are from other companies. So Unix will have its own Unix directory service from Unix. So basically what I want to explain is AD is just a identity store where you store the identities. Similarly, we have different identity stores like Oracle directory or OpenDS from ForgeRock, Unix directory, etc. All these directory services uses LDAP for communication. So let's say if you want to communicate, you create a user. So that user profile is created as an object inside AD, right? So when you try to fetch that user, that communication between AD and let's say some application, that is happening because of LDAP. So LDAP is not an identity store. Got it? Is it clear?
Yeah, understand.
Yeah. So Oracle, we have Oracle Directory Service. Then we have one from OpenDS. So each RAM will have its own directory services or identity store. It can be anything. It could be an AD, it could be an Oracle directory, it could be an OpenDS. Now, based on these directory services, what will change? Based on these identity stores, which are different, authentication mechanism changes. Okay, let's take a brief example here, what we're trying to explain. Okay, let's continue with the yesterday's example. Let's say we have three different realms called admin, employees, and customers, right? So let me just put this login page. So admin will have a separate login page. Employees will have their own login page, and customers will have sorry their own login page. There are different login pages as per the user base, based on what the user is, in which realm we are changing the authentication mechanism. Okay. Now, why can't we have a same login page for all? Because everyone functionalities and features are different. A customer may not require you to access any technical task. He just wants to comply with his work. Okay. Administrators, they do not want to indulge in what business activities they are doing. They are just going through the technical issues or the technical requests, queries that comes across their way, so that they can help the smooth running of business. They want to make sure the applications are up and running every time. Employees, on the other hand, they are the one who are working for the company as a service, so they require a certain different set of rules for authentication mechanism, right? So basically, each of the authentication mechanism changes based on what the user type is. Okay, and let's say, for example, each of them is getting stored in a different database. Let's say, uh, let's say this one. This is 80. Okay, and let's say these guys are stored in OpenDS. Okay, and the last one, let's say they are stored in something else in Unix directory service. Okay, so basically each one is relying on a different directory service, and since the directory services are changed, the authentication mechanism is also changed. Although they might be using the same identity store, how we can achieve this? We can achieve this by having separate realms. And how do we differentiate that? Based on the user group or the user uh, functionality, or what role the users are into. Okay, this is simple, right? A few other things that we want to check about realms is realms are actually isolated. Now, what do you mean by that, sir? Realms are isolated. Let's say any member from the employee realm, he wants to try to log in onto a realm of customers, they cannot. Anyone from the admin, if they're trying to log in into the customer realm, they cannot, because they are independent of each other. They have their own separate uh, identity stores. Even if they are using same identity store, uh, they have to make sure that they're enforcing, excuse me, just a minute, just realms are independent, or isolated, meaning that users of one realm cannot log into another realm. Why? Because each realm has its own set of policies, and those policies are applied only to those users. Okay. Now let's do one thing. I started my server. Let's go about creating a realm. Okay. So by default, you should have this realm, which is a root realm. So it will have these things. The one I was referring to is identity store, which is an embedded OpenDG, Open Directory Service, or OpenDS is also referred to as. If you see this, it will have its own LDAP binding, which is to a directory manager, and it has its own the property is ignored. Okay, so these are the set of configurations you have, which is by default. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me go ahead and create one new real. What will happen? Let's see. Let's say if you're putting up, uh, let's say customers. So by default, you see it is taking it from parent. That is the root real, which came as a default configuration. Now let's see if I have a separate realm, I can pick it up from there as well, or I can choose it that take it from the other realm that is available. So as of now, I'll just keep it to parent, that is root. Okay, realm aliases means that if you want to put any uh, alias is like another name, right? So external users, right? I can put it them as external users for my reference. Okay, what is DNS aliases? Again, it is nothing but list of fully qualified DNS aliases for this real. For example, I want to put it as customers dot example.com. Okay, just an example that I'm putting this as. So even if the domain is customers.example.com, it should take me to this real. It should not go to any other real. Or if you have any other thing in your mind when you want to put that alias for this particular realm. For example, if you want to put it as external users dot example.com, you can put that as well. And you hit create. Okay, it did create it and activated that as well. So this realm is customers realm. Okay. Now, before we jump for other topics like SAML, etc., and application protection, I want you to understand this concept of identity store. Identity store is a separate for each. You can add also another one. Okay, these are all the identity stores. Active Directory application mode, Active Directory, Sun directory with open schema. See, open a ForgeRock IAM directory server. Rivoli, it is from IBM. Okay, you can have these types of identity store. You can add them. So as of now, we don't. So we'll just leave it as it is. The other thing that you have to check about is global services. Okay, oh, global services basically talks about, uh, let's say if this URL of this particular realm is getting external, meaning that it is something that has been accessed outside the network of the organization. Okay, how what are the different factors that you want to enforce on it? So among all these, I'll explain a few, but among this, we'll first check about something called platform. Okay, platform. So we already have seen about cookies in our initial classes, right? What are the cookies? What is the session, etc. So over here, platform local en underscore us. Actually, this one is referring to the root realm. Okay, how? Let me show you an example. Okay, let's go to this realm, and over here we'll check about under global services. So configure the default properties applied when creating new services. So whenever you're creating a new service, which is a new realm over here, in our case, we can configure these items. Platform locals. So let me just take an example set. The fallback local when the user local cannot be determined, meaning that when we're not sure of the user which is local to this particular realm, we are putting up a cookie for him. Okay, let me explain it this way. So in top realm, that is the root one, by default it has a user called root. Okay, by default it will have a user, let's say root. So let me just delete this. It has this user. Is there a way I can edit? Okay, so we have not set any username and password for this, correct? So the moment you open your ForgeRock page, you already see the top realm, and if you go under identities, you'll see a demo user already created there by default. Okay. Now let me take an example of the other realm that we created, which is customers. And I go into identities. It again took me the demo user. Although this demo user is coming from where? It is coming from the root, because the moment when we copied, when we say create a new realm, right? When we say create new realm, and we said the parent should be root, so it copied all its properties. Along with its properties, it also copied what are the different identities it has. So by default, it is a demo user, even for the new realm. For example, now you have an application over here. I'm talking about the real use case. Okay. In a real use case, what will happen? Let's say you have configured it, and there are two different realms. We have a realm called customers, right? And one we have a realm called root. And in we took the root realm, made it as parent, and we created the customers realm. And in this customers realm, you have an application. Let me just write it down. This could be a little bit confusing, but let me just explain it one more time. So in the top realm is like parent for all, right? It's a parent. So let's say you want to create employees as a realm. Now I would say my business logic says that no, we have two types of employees. One is a contractor, another one is a full time. So what I'll do, I'll create one realm called employee, then I'll create two, which is preceding the employees. Okay. Now just now we saw the example that when we are creating a new realm every time, and we are saying that it is inheriting, just like the concept of inheritance in Java, it is inheriting the properties from inheriting properties from parent class. Now let's say in employees realm you do not have any application added, you have one application added over here, one HRMS for contractor, and have one HRMS for contractor, and we have another HRMS for full-time employees. Now these two are different identities stored altogether. I was giving an example that we have employees, and employees we have contractors and full-time. So we have an HRMS application which is for time and attendance for contractor employees as well as for full-time employees. Now since we saw that whenever we are creating a new realm, it is inheriting all the properties from the parent realm. Correct. Now let's say in the employees realm as well, we have the default demo username and password. And without knowing this option, we had added the application, HRMS application for both contractors and full-time employees. Okay, application we have added for both of these users, and they have a separate username and password. What it will do, so even if you provide them the correct username and password to log in to that HRMS application, it won't work because by default it is inheriting the one from its parent realm, which is employees. Got this point? Is this clear?
Can you explain a bit more actually?
Yes, no, maybe. Sorry?
Can you explain a bit more on the Raylan thing and as
Sure,
well as
sure.
this one?
Sure thing. So as of now, we do not have the application added. Okay. Now, for example, this is the demo. This is the top realm, which is for root. In Unix service, we have the root user, right? Like
Uh-huh.
that, in real, we have the top real, which is for root real. Now, when we're trying to explain these concepts, this is clear that each real will have its own identity store, and it can be different. It can be an AD, it can be an OpenDJ, or it can be a Unix directory service, right? Based on that different directory service or identity store, the authentication mechanism differs. This is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was trying to explain you the option for
But I have one more question here. Okay.
sure.
Sorry to trouble you. Okay,
Sure,
so
sure.
for
Yes,
example, we have so many realms in our thing, right? So we have same identity store. We can keep it, right?
they can. Yes,
Okay,
they want to. Yes, they can. I even put this point as well. Can two realm use same identity store? Yes, they can.
okay,
You can
okay,
configure them that way that they're using the same. And will let's say if I'm not keeping, they are all separate. So if I'm making any changes in one realm, will that affect the users in the other realm? No, it won't, because they are isolated from each other. But if you want, you can configure it to use them the same identity store.
okay.
You got this right? So in real
Yeah,
time scenarios, you might have, or you may come across a scenario wherein, let's say they are, um, there's a company, let's say Wipro. Okay, under Wipro, we have HR department, we have IT department, we have finance, we have audit. Okay, we have executives. So let's consider all these are different realms. Okay, we have altogether what? One, two, three, four, five different realms. I want all the realms to point to single identity store. Yes, that is achievable. What is the purpose? See, since all of these are using Microsoft products, the moment they log into the VPN or company's VPN under Wipro's organization, once they are logged in, automatically they should be able to sign into their Outlook and SharePoint and what else? Messenger. So these are all the tools which are common with all the people, irrespective of what their roles are. These applications are common. You agree? So since all these applications are common, I want them to be authenticated in the same way. I do not want, like, let's say if it's an executive level, I want him some additional set of questions to be asked. No, he is also an employee, just like any other employee. So they might want to access other applications. Okay, that's different. But there are few applications which are common. Let's say Outlook or SharePoint or Messenger. So these are like the common applications which are exactly these are all employees can access. Okay, so we can have a single identity store or same, if not single, I would say same, because again we can have replica of it for disaster recovery. Okay, that's clear. Apart from that, this portion which I was referring to, uh, also Manoj, just to give a heads up, have some guests coming in and out, so I may have to wrap this quickly. So we'll just create a realm. We'll check about this. I'll give you some homework as such so that you can work on it, and we will see it in the next class. Okay. So let me just get you the concept and doubts clear in the first instance. We have the stop realm, which is demo, and it got identity store, which is for storing the identities. And one we have is identities, the users which are belonging to this realm. So by default, it is using demo. Okay, it is using what? Demo. Now when I'm using customers realm, I do not want this demo user to come in. I want a separate one, right? Correct. I want a separate username. I don't want demo. I may want user one. Okay, first f name, l name, last name, f name, l name, Password maybe admin at 123 f dot lname at example.com. Employee number is E65253, whatever. Right? I do not want the same details to be copied because this is not the demo user who is trying to log into the application, which is associated with this real. I will have a separate user base. This is only for customers, not for root or administrators. Got my point? I saved it.
And one more question here. Okay.
Sure.
So if we are when you are creating the other realm, right? So at that time you are giving root user, root realm as slash, for example, root realm. That is a root realm here, right? So okay, whatever the users in that realm, so will it copy to other realms as well?
Let's say, for example, we create another real. Okay, let's go with creating another real.
Mhm.
This time, instead of taking it from root, let's take it from employees. We want to name this as, excuse me, sorry, the real. Let's say it is contractors, and I'm taking it from employee FT. Okay, what is the real? This is aliases. We are saying that it's contractors. DNS, I don't want to define a DNS. Let's say create. So it is coming not from root. This time it is coming from employee FT. Okay. Now before we check about the contractors realm, let's have a look on the employee FT realm. I have not changed anything. I just have created one. Hello. Okay. So I have not changed anything over here. I just went on to identities. By default, it took as demo. Why? Because it is inherited from root. So even if I now let's check about this one. So this one is inherited from employee FT. This one. Since this one has a demo user, even this will have a demo user. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to change it. One, 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 password managed. This password. Okay, change changes whatever changes we have done. Saved it. You see, it even affected this user. Even in the contractors, it took as demo one, although I just changed it on employee FT, right? I just saved it for employee FT. But since this contractors realm is inherited from employee FT realm, whatever the users it had by default user, it took the same default property. So if I changed something over here, it also reflected there. Okay, so what I want to explain by this is whenever we are having a realm configured, and let's say if that realm have a separate application, make sure we have something called platform. Let me get you to the platform option. Can you guys show me if you were able to get to this point, if you're clear on this part? This is clear? Both of you, Ronald and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm clear. It shows that it's just is platform related, right? It's platform dependent.
yes, they will. Excuse me. Sorry, what was the question?
So it is platform dependent. If you change one, it will
This is
automatically
platform.
inherit.
Yes, this is platform dependent. That's what I want to say. So what I want to explain over here is I do not have an application added as of now, but I want to explain you this option. Uh, where is it? Employee FT. Okay. So I went on to global services and I picked up there are all these global services which are specific for that particular realm. So I said, okay, go to the platform. Since it's a platform dependent option, I'm going to platform. And we had earlier something called cookie. We understood what exactly cookie is, right? It would save the session details. Whatever the user is trying to log in or request for, it will create a session from the server, and this cookie will contain the session information. Basically, it will have a session ID and the session key. Remember that it was in the initial class. So what we can do over here, we can define the domain from which it has to take the cookie. This is from Since this is from FT, I'm defining the domain over here, employee ft.example.com. Let's say for example, okay. And if I'm logging, I'm checking over here under global services. This is for contractors. Okay, this is for contractors. Let me just go one more time. Under contractors, I went to global services, then I went for platform. Got my point? So unlike, let's say if we do not want this or we want a separate one for contractors, I can define it contractors dot example dot com. Apart from the one that is from its parent, I also want to add something else because, for example, if for contractors I have a separate application and that is not displayed in the employee FT, so I want the cookies to be stored for this domain as well. Is this clear? Set the list of domains in which OpenAM writes the cookies. If you see set multiple cookie domains, OpenAM still only sets the cookie in the domain that client uses to access OpenAM. If this property is left blank, then the fully qualified domain name of the server. What is the fully qualified name of the server? That is root,
Mhm.
right? For this is okay. Let's go on to realm number top realm. Okay, let's go and check the global services here and platform over here. Oh, just a minute. Since I had written it earlier, I'll just delete. Ideally, it should be localhost.example.com. And if I want, I can add others. Okay, so this was the default one for root real because I wanted to store the cookie domains for the local host. And for employees, I'm keeping it separate. And for contractors, since it's been inherited from full-time employees, it is default coming as employeeft.example.com. Plus, I just added contractors.example.com, which is unique for this particular real. Is this a bit confusing? I think so. Just check for the example on let's say we have host and we have client, correct? So each one will have a cookie, host cookie and client cookie. When we say client, it would be browser, and when we say host, it is the app service. Okay, there would be two cookies. One is host cookie, another one is the client cookie. So over here, by default, OpenAM writes the cookie into whatever the domain list listed over here in this one. Since when you have, let's say, if you already have top realm and if you have not configured any other second realm, this might be empty for you guys. You can check because by default it is writing into the local host, meaning into the computer itself. In localhost 8080, we have I had set the what you call host name as localhost test.me or openam.example.com. Like these, I have set few of hosts which are directing to localhost, that is 127.0.0.1, right? So the application is not requesting to some other server, it is requesting within the machine itself. Locally, it is requesting. The host itself is local machine. It's not a separate server. Okay. So if you check right now, if you have not created any other realm, you check, open the top realm and check for the platform option. This cookie would be empty for you. Why? Because it is saving that cookie locally on your system. Now, since we are separating their realms, we want that cookie to be saved with a different name. Okay. Ideally, these would be set on separate servers. And since these cookies are stored where? For this one, it is stored on its own repository. For employees FT, it will be stored in its own repository. That is identity store. Okay, for contractors, it will again save it in their own respective identity store. So we do not want one single identities to be, excuse me, hello. Sorry, guys. So, yes, so this would be stored in its own identity store locally. Likewise, I want the cookies for the domain employee FT to be saved separately in its own identity store, not in the root realm. Okay, I want the employee contractors cookie to be saved in its own identity store, not, I mean, it might by default take it, but I can add, or I can remove it. Even I can delete this, and I can keep only contractors.example.com and save the changes. Nothing would go wrong, because it's my up to me whether I want to save it in the parent identity store or not. Since you took an example of what do you call, can we have single identity, no, sorry, identity store for all the realms? Yes, I can have it. And how I can achieve that mechanism? Where is it? How can I achieve this mechanism? Let's say each of these departments, each of these realms is saving the cookie in one store, in one identity store, or same identity store. It would be easier for them to remember the password, right? What is cookies for? It will remember the user session, for how long this user has been logged in, is the user logged in into the same network or not, all the details, right? The session ID and the session value, all these details would be contained from the cookie. So we can achieve seamless application login if we have our cookies stored in the same realm. If you are separating the realm, if you are separating the realm, again the user has to be get authenticated against it. I think it's still confusing for you guys.
Yeah,
Is
that part
it?
I did not get that part
Okay. Uh,
because I had the
all
impression
right.
that for okay, so
Sorry, go ahead.
users of the same application is good to have them in the same realm for seamless operation. Is that what he said?
Right. If they are accessing same applications, if they are of the
Okay,
same organization, they can have a same identity store. Now, since they are having the same identity store, they can all these users cookies can be saved in the same identity store.
okay,
Is it clear this till this point?
yeah, got it.
Okay. Now, the, okay, let me do this. Actually, I have a few guests coming, and that's the reason I have been getting calls. So let's just give you guys some homework kind of thing so that you can try it on your own. Okay. One thing is you create employees and you create two realms under it. One is contractors, another one is full time. Okay. I want separate users for this. You can create a user, right? Let's say you created two users here and you created two users for full time. Okay, with the password you can create it. Now once you have created the password, what you will do, you will have to log in. Correct. Let me, where is it? Let's say if I have, let's open in private window. What? Oh, okay. uh, Actually this has to be stored as well, right? Okay, do one thing, create these users, create with their username and password, create their credentials. Let me take an example of customers, identities, create another identity, user ID, user contractor one, password is what, this. This is the password. Email address is user contact one at example.com. Not now. User one contract. I already given the password. Okay, I wanted to actually wanted to try this persistent cookie. Platform login. Let's try platform login. Mm, let's say www.google.com, and if it's failure, you are directed to Facebook. Just some random things. 1, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the password is the same password, right? Yes. Save. You should be able to see this dashboard. Okay, that's it. Now the URL that he should be trying to log into, I'm trying to redirect him to the platform itself. Okay, let's try this person. So sorry guys, I had some guests coming in because it's weekend. I'll just quickly show you. Unauthorized user, why? Uh, Okay. Sorry, it's not working.
Why is that doing that?
Sorry?
Why is it doing that? Because even this morning when I came to connect, I was having that until I had to go back, go.
I think we can try. Guys, actually, I have people waiting.
I'll work.
See, this should take up this time, hopefully. Please. So sorry.
Do you have like a quick guide on maybe the backstage documentation where we can read about all this creating, all this realm creating?
Yes, yes. Let me share that to you. Yes. I'm
And now
getting
for
this
the
out.
parent, do we have to,
This out.
we have to create the parent or that is
I'll share
allocated?
it. I'll share it to you. Let
Okay.
me.
Thank you, sir.
Galo, Galo, aja, aja, aja. I'll share it with you guys. Not to worry.
Thank you.
Just waiting for the server to start it. Aja, aja. Ah, waiting or what? I mean, I'll just show you guys. Okay. Let's say if I go to docs, this is from the companies, so I'm just trying to download the PDF. Knowledge base, maybe. Uh, access management, books. Okay, let's see. Okay. Let me give you this cookies in and also data stores. Let me see if I can download.
Hmm.
This is actually my office login, so I'm just checking if I can get the PDF so that it would be easier.
Okay.
Okay, this does not apply to the Identity Cloud, which is the new version. These are just like FAQs. Meanwhile, let me try this. He is still not giving me the access, even though it should have upgraded by now. Okay, I'll be checking on this part, but nevertheless, I'll share you the document that I can get from ForgeRock. Okay, more of these are like FAQs, but I'll share this if I can get. Uh, I don't know how should I get a PDF format. Okay, let me see this. Okay, I'm going to share this one. It's basically FAQs. Save it.